In the forest, a boy with swords in his mouth, as if he's Zorro, struggles to fight against a giant wolf. He declares with a bruised face that these humans are his. He won't let this wolf touch them. It's a three-eyed wolf with scars and its body and sharp teeth. It pounces at the boy. But the boy stands firm, holding his ground to protect his girl, yet he doesn't know why he is protecting these humans. How did he even end up in this situation? Is God punishing him? Even if that's the case, he will protect this girl to the very end. However, this is all mankind's fault. He never expected someone to succeed, but they did. A group of adventurers had successfully defeated him, calling retribution for its sins. 1,000 years ago, his kind was wiped out by humanity. He was originally supposed to exact revenge on mankind, but now it was all over, as he breathed his last breath. He was surrounded by humans who celebrated his downfall. Suddenly he saw a bright light and heard strange voices. That's when he saw a human smiling at him. Upon seeing this giant human, he was stunned. He had no clue why he was in the human's embrace. Suddenly he pondered if he had become a human. He struggled to escape, attempting to tell the human to let him go, however that came out as gibberish. His father mistaken his struggle for liking him. Suddenly he spat in his father's face in an act of defiance. His father was grossed out, and began shaking his head to get the spit off his face as the baby laughed meticulously. His mother smiled warmly at him and welcomed him into this world, naming him Ray. It was a laughable name. Now 4 years has passed, and Ray realized on the grass as he struggles to perform movements, believing that his body is too weak. In the 4-year time period, his hair had slowly turned red, and he's still not accustomed to the rest of his body. Unfortunately, at this rate, he'll never be able to get his revenge. He says this out loud, and a girl approaches him, taking him by surprise. He grabs his sword, inquiring who is there. The sun begins to set, illuminating this beautiful girl's appearance. As she questions if he's okay, she introduces herself as Amy. She wanted to remind him to head down the mountain since it's getting late. He blushes and informs her that she startled him. He questions if the area is dangerous. She explains that it's fine during the day, but this place is too close to the forest, and demonic beasts hunt on this place at night. She seems to know a fair amount about demonic beasts because she often picks up fruits and whatever vegetables here. She suggested they head down the mountain together since it's getting dark. He attempted to introduce himself, but she cuts him off, calling him Ray, reminding him that he's well known in the village. However, being well known isn't always a good thing. He's quite infamous for his red hair, because the villagers believe that he and his family are cursed. In this world, humans consider red as the most ominous color because their legends say that the entire magical world is ruled by a single red dragon. The war between mankind and dragonkind has gone on for hundreds, no thousands of years. Though few have seen the legendary red dragon, it had long been regarded by humans as the embodiment of evil. At least that's how the story goes. As they walk together, they have a discussion, asking each other questions. She always sees him every time she picks fruits, practicing the sword. She asked if he wants to become a swordsman. Suddenly, as they're walking, they notice 3 boys. A blonde-haired boy declares, "Get away from my sister." His name is Gary. She attempts to defend Ray, informing her brother that he's done nothing wrong. However, Gary threatens him. As they're passing by, 2 boys comment that he should help them out by leaving the village, as he will only bring misfortune. They also comment that his parents should get the hell out, and it's their fault for having a kid like him. He shouts, getting their attention. In an instant, he lunges at a boy who didn't even see it coming. Immediately, Gary pushes him out of the way and takes the blow. The punch was so strong that he was pushed away. Ray tells him not to get in his way, as he only wants to beat up the boys who dishonored his parents. Gary arrogantly tells him not to complain if he gets beat up, as he's the one who started it. Gary's lackeys hands him a sword, and Gary declares that he doesn't want to take Ray's life. Ray throws away his sword and tells him that he doesn't want to take his life either. Ray makes a fighting stance, announcing that he doesn't care if they all attack him at once. In the next scene, we see Ray passing by a woman who gets a chill down her spine as he passes by. She and the vendor stare at him in silence. They comment that he will be joining the next exam. However, the woman believes that the academy would never take in such a bringer of misfortune. At a small cottage, his mother smiles, warmly inquiring why he's home so late. Upon seeing his face, she believes that he has been in a fight. Ray responds that he got these during training. She tells him not to lie and question if those kids bullied him. She quickly washes off his face and is scared by his wounds. It would be horrible if they leave scars. However, he declared that he's a man, so he's fine. His father comments that he seems to have been put in a lot of effort into training his swordmanship skills. This enrages his wife, who blames him for everything. Why is he making their son fight against training dummies when he's so young? But her husband doesn't know what else he should have done. How can he get into the Knight Academy if he can't even defeat a wooden training dummy? This enrages her further. Ray doesn't have to be like them. He can choose any other occupation in the future. However, he believes that although his son cannot be a mage, he is a genius swordman. As a result, she attacks him with the fireball, breaking their agreement that they agree upon that no magic will be used in the house. Though his parents are both rare adventurers, he doesn't seem to have inherited any of their talents. If he had become a mage, would he have turned out like this? At the mage selection test, an old wizard with a ball presented in front of him sadly announced that Ray doesn't seem to have any talent for magic. His mom thought it was a mistake, as she is a mage who graduated from this academy. Ray hit the ball repeatedly, believing that it must be broken. The old man apologized, but he couldn't help her. Ray spits out his pacifier, believing that this must be some kind of stupid joke. After all, he's the ruler of magic. He grabbed onto the old man's mustache. Ray is someone who is great and knows how to use magic. So how could he have no talent for magic? The old man must be lying, he thought. This caused quite a scene, which the people gossip about as usual. The dragon of legends can't use magic. After reincarnating, that must be a joke, he believed. His father presented him with a sword. It could be considered an early birthday gift. Even if he can't become a mage, he can still become a swordman like his father, which means there's still hope for him. This made Ray very happy. As long as he became a swordman, he'll still be able to exactly revenge on mankind, as he truly hates mankind, except for his parents. Inside the barn, he activates a level 1 dummy. The dummy lunges at him with his sword and shield in hand, deducing that he has finally figured out his techniques and movements. He creates some distance between himself and the dummy. Then, with great precision and speed, he lunges at the dummy, attempting to find a flaw in its defense. However, a pebble gets in his way, and he trips, missing his perfect opportunity to strike. Instead, he hits a board and breaks his sword, which is quite embarrassing. The dummy, disappointed in his performance, retaliates by hitting him on the head and finishing him off. The dummy notifies that Level 1 failed. Although Ray had found the cleanest way to break through, his body couldn't keep up. He wonders if he can really become a swordsman. His mind flashes back to earlier when Gary beat him up and took his money. As he could barely stand to fight back, Gary commented that Ray had a long way to go. Mockingly, Gary told him to stop dreaming of becoming a swordsman and to go do some lowly work at his level. Using this as motivation, Ray resets and begins facing the dummy again. Throughout the night, he continues fighting against the level 1 dummy. Meanwhile, at Gary's home, his sister Amy informs him that he went overboard. However, Gary believes that the symbol of misfortune was asking for it. Gary insists Ray should stay away from him, as his red hair might be infectious. He adds that if Ray continues clinging to Amy, he will teach him a lesson. Angrily, Amy declares that she hates Gary. She hits him on the head and tells him to clean up his mess himself. Gary starts to notice a dent in his armor. The next day, Ray walks alone in the forest. That's when he notices Amy glancing around. Upon seeing her, she smiles brightly and declares, "Morning." He approaches her, inquiring if she was waiting for him. She tells him that she wanted to apologize. However, he says there was no need, as it wasn't her fault. Unfortunately, he admits that he just wasn't good enough. Tears begin to form in her eyes as she looks at him. Upon seeing this, Ray thought that humans really are troublesome. Unfortunately, he had no choice but to deal with humans due to societal norms. He took an apple from Amy's basket and accepted her apology, which seemed to make her happy. He noticed that humans are sensitive. They cry and laugh at the drop of a hat. Meanwhile, at the House of the Talons, a group of knights on horses stood outside their home. Villagers near the border had been attacked by something. There were no clear eyewitnesses, but someone had already been infected. Many people were delirious and unable to recount what had happened. The knights requested their help in investigating the matter. Usually, such creatures would never approach areas where humans gathered, so it was quite abnormal. Ray's mother was worried and wanted to join, but her husband assured her that there was no need to worry. Audrey would be enrolling in the academy soon, and it was only an investigation mission. He promised it would be fine and that he would return soon. She understood and told him to be careful. Meanwhile, as the sun set, Ray trained but still found himself unable to fully adapt to the coordination of a human body. Oddly, Amy sat nearby under a tree, reading a book. She looked beautiful as the sunlight shone on her. Upon looking at her, his heart began to beat rapidly, seemingly in love. He smacked his face, thinking his human body must be getting the better of him. He told her that they should stop here and head back home. She agreed, realizing she hadn't noticed how late it had gotten. As they crossed the bridge, she followed behind him, inspecting the area to ensure Gary wouldn't try to hurt Ray again. It was crazy that the ruler of magic was being protected by a human girl. However, this girl was remarkable. She believed that whatever the villagers thought of her was their own business. She had her own opinions and refused to believe the ridiculous rumors. To her, his red hair was just a color, and no one should be labeled as evil because of it. She didn't want him to care too much about others' opinions. Instead, she encouraged him to focus on his own path because he had a long journey ahead of him. Ray was surprised and reflected on what Gary had said earlier. An idea came to his mind, and he rushed off, telling Amy he'd see her tomorrow. He activated the dummy at level 1, putting his sword in his mouth and striking a dragon-like pose. This was what he was good at, being himself. In one quick strike, he punched the dummy, defeating it. He was elated that it worked. His father had promised that as long as he defeated a level 1 dummy, it would be a sign of progress. With determination in his eyes, he activated level 2. The next day, just as the sun rose, Ray asked his father why he was leaving so early. Ray's father told him that he had received a mission and wouldn't be home for a while, but he promised to return by the time Ray took his examination. He smiled at his son, encouraging him to train hard with the wooden dummy while he was gone. He believed Ray would be able to defeat it. Ray's mother handed his father his sword. They exchanged goodbyes, telling each other they would miss one another. Clearing the dummy's trial was nothing extraordinary, but when his father returned, Ray was sure he'd be shocked. It would be fun to see his father's silly reaction later. If it weren't for Amy, Ray wouldn't have figured out a way to defeat the dummy so easily. He now understood how humans felt when they anticipated something and the emotions tied to gratitude. Slowly, he realized he was becoming more human. But to him, humans still remained frustrating, except for 3 of them. He decided that perhaps he wouldn't exact revenge on them after all. Later, as he trained, he realized he hadn't seen Amy all day. He was surprisingly excited while waiting for her arrival. With a red face, he declared to himself that it was good nobody was there to disturb him during training. He resolved never to let himself be corrupted by human emotions again. He was the great red dragon. The sun began to set, and he fell asleep on the grass. When he opened his eyes, it was already late. Panicking, he ran home, knowing he'd be scolded if he didn't get there in time. He decided that tomorrow, he would thank Amy properly. Meanwhile, in the village, the villagers were gathered, discussing something. The weapon shop owner explained to a blonde-haired man that 4 people had come into his shop to buy weapons. The blonde man informed the others that these 4 wanted to enter the forest to hunt demonic beasts. Among the group were Gary and Amy's mother. When Gary's parents realized their children were among those planning to enter the forest, they felt a surge of horror. Amy's mother exclaimed that they were just children. How could the shopkeeper let them go into the forest by themselves? Why didn't he try to stop them? The shopkeeper stammered, explaining he didn't know they would actually follow through with the plan. Gary's father wanted to search for them but was too scared to go alone. Ray, upon hearing this, thought to himself that karma had come quickly for Gary. If Gary really wanted to get rid of him, now he could see the consequences firsthand if Gary and his friends died to demonic beasts. Ray contemplated Amy, who had always treated him kindly. He had no plans for revenge against her, but it was unfortunate that she had such a foolish brother. He reasoned that humans always had short lifespans. Dying early or dying late didn't matter much to him. However, when he realized that Amy was also missing, he felt a heavy, stuffy sensation in his chest. Without hesitation, he turned around immediately. Amy was innocent, and he hadn't even told her that she was the one who had helped him defeat the wooden dummy. Meanwhile, in the forest, wolves lay dead on the ground. 2 boys were knocked out, while Gary stood with his sword, facing something. Meanwhile, Amy sobs quietly as she calls out to Gary. Trembling, Gary tells her not to move. A giant wolf slowly approaches them. It seems they might become dog food tonight. Meanwhile, Ray smells the scent of blood. He feels grateful that it is just a teenage demon wolf. Its belly is slashed, likely caused by a knife, and its body is still warm. From this, Ray is sure the children are nearby, but the messy footsteps and tracks make it hard to determine which direction to take. Suddenly, he hears a scream. It's Amy. Gary is thrown into a tree, falling unconscious in front of his terrified sister. The giant wolf charges at Amy with its mouth wide open, ready to devour her in one gulp. Petrified, Amy begs for God or someone to save her. Suddenly, Ray arrives, stopping the wolf mid-charge. However, his bravery doesn't last long as the wolf slashes his arm. Ray tells Amy not to worry, assuring her he won't die just yet. He lures the demon wolf away from her, but the wolf is fast and agile, while his human body is too weak. There is absolutely no way for him to fight evenly against an adult demon wolf. In the face of absolute strength, his movements seem pathetically slow. He realizes he cannot hold out for much longer and tries to make his next attack count. Knowing the weakest part of a demon wolf lies somewhere on its body, he aims for a critical wound. Though his attack lands, it is too weak to be decisive. He manages only to destroy the wolf's eye. The wolf throws him away with its impact, and Ray struggles to stand as Amy looks at him worriedly. The wolf, now bleeding from its eye and filled with rage, charges at him again. Ray notices a flaw in its defense, and, with all his remaining strength, slashes at its leg. The wolf tumbles to the ground, flinging both Ray and Amy aside. Despite its injuries, the wolf strikes at him again. Refusing to give up, Ray unleashes a flurry of attacks, slashing and striking from every angle. Finally, it seems he has defeated the wolf, but he is utterly exhausted and unable to move. All he can do is stare at Amy, who lies unconscious against a log. That's when a flame begins to appear above his head. A small dragon with 2 horns and a tail materializes. It seems to be a system notification, informing Ray that he has unlocked the dragon's eyes and obtained an intermediate demonic core. Despite this, Ray's priority remains the same. He must bring the children back to the village. Carrying both Gary and Amy proves to be a difficult task, but he does his best. Unfortunately, 2 boys are still unconscious. Having no other choice, he leaves their survival to fate and begins walking toward the village. Meanwhile, the villagers are gathered, discussing whether anyone has found the missing children. Suddenly, they notice someone approaching and believe it is one of the missing kids. When they realize it's Ray, they see him collapse and call out for help, saying he requires treatment. The villagers murmur in astonishment, realizing he carried the children on his own 2 feet all the way out of the forest. A woman rushes forward, demanding to know where her children, Bob and Kyle, are. A villager informs her that Ray only brought 2 kids back. The woman, unable to believe this, begins shouting for Kyle and Bob. She tries to run into the forest, but the villagers stop her, warning that it's too dangerous. Ignoring their warnings, she screams at them, calling them cowards as tears stream down her face. She rushes into the forest, calling for her children. However, her motherly instincts are quickly defeated by the terrifying eyes watching her from the shadows. She immediately retreats, screaming. When she returns, the villagers question why she's back. Trying to act strong, she approaches the injured boy, Ray, who fought a giant wolf to save the other children. She grabs him and angrily demands to know where Bob and Kyle are. She accuses him of tricking her children into the forest. Seeing that he is weak, she slaps him across the face. She declares that his red hair is ominous, and that he's a bringer of disaster who puts everyone at risk. The villagers begin murmuring, agreeing that Ray may have lured the children into danger. They accuse him of leaving the others to die and question why he only brought back Amy and Gary. One villager slaps Ray, demanding he confess where the other children are. The woman cries out, saying the children are just kids. How could he leave them to die? They seem to forget that Ray himself is just a child. Instead, they see him as a monster. The woman storms away, calling Ray a cold-blooded monster. Despite her anger, she refuses to enter the forest alone. The villagers say they have their own children to think of. Ray reflects bitterly on their hypocrisy. He realizes that these people don't see him as human. They only see the color of his hair. Suddenly, the woman picks up a torch, declaring that she won't forgive him. As she raises the torch toward Ray, he wonders if he's about to die at the hands of humans. But just then, Gary intervenes, blocking the torch. The villagers are shocked, questioning what Gary is doing. They comment on how strange it is for Gary to side with Ray, someone he once disliked. Gary, however, stands firm and asks how they can decide someone's fate based on their hair color or superstitions. He tells them not to touch his savior. The old woman, filled with rage and tears streaming down her face, inquires why Ray isn't rotting in hell, calling him a calamity. Suddenly, he wakes up from this nightmare, sweating profusely. His mother holds his hand, and he glances at her, noticing that she's crying, obviously worried about him. It's a mystery to him how human beings can be so beautiful yet so cruel. She squeezes his hand as she slowly opens her eyes. She is so ecstatic that she wonders if she's dreaming. Hugging him tightly, she exclaims, "I thought you'd never wake up." She tells him, through immense pain, never to act recklessly in the future. He's been unconscious for an entire week, and if he had never woken up, she wouldn't have known how to explain it to his father. As for the 2 kids he saved, they are okay, suffering only light injuries, but Bob and Kyle are still missing. It seems they have already met an untimely death. When Ray passed out, his mother arrived and found Gary defending him. However, the villagers claimed that Gary must have been brainwashed by Ray. When Ray's mother arrived, everyone was terrified. A blue aura emitted from her, as she questioned coldly, "Who did this to my son?" The villagers mockingly told her it was her child who encouraged the other children to go into the forest, meaning he was also responsible. They said she should understand their feelings. But as Ray's mother glared at them, one of the women trembled and broke into tears. She fell to her knees, dropping the torch, and screamed, "My beautiful kids! Someone save them!" The villagers rushed to comfort her, completely ignoring the child they had just beaten up. Meanwhile, Ray's mother knelt beside him and whispered softly, "It's not your fault." Gary had explained everything to her. Knowing her son must be hungry after being unconscious for so long, she went to get him some food. Ray, curious about the dragon's blessing he had been granted earlier, pondered if everyone had such abilities. He tapped on the dragon's eye blessing, and suddenly his eyes darkened as power surged into them. He saw his mother's fatigue and realized she needed rest. He remembered that as a red dragon, he had many magical abilities. Ever since he failed to get into the Magic Academy, he thought he would never have the chance to use them again. But now, he could regain them one by one. The reason he unlocked this power was because he had defeated an intermediate-rank demon wolf. Suddenly, smoke appeared in his room. Looking out the window, he realized their house was on fire. His mother rushed into his room, telling him they needed to leave immediately. Using her magical ability, she extinguished the flames. Ray used his dragon eyes and saw the woman carrying flammable items in her bucket. She had tried to destroy the evidence of the torch she used to light their house on fire. The townspeople noticed the fire but refused to help. They stood by and watched as Ray's mother extinguished the flames alone. When she finally finished, she sighed in relief that her family was safe. She decided they couldn't stay in this village any longer, as it would only bring more destruction. She thought her son would be scared, but upon seeing his calm expression, she was confused. He held her hand, assuring her he was fine, and praised her for her strength. Ray, however, couldn't stop contemplating how humans wanted to burn down their home and hoped they'd perish in the flames. They wanted him and his family dead, and he felt he must take revenge. The next day, Ray left the house, and his mother warned him to be careful since his wounds weren't fully healed. With 2 buckets and a sword in hand, he activated his dragon eyes and noticed only novice-rank beasts nearby. In a short time, he defeated 20 beasts. The system informed him that he had obtained a novice-rank beast core. Luck played a significant role in obtaining these cores, and although he killed 20 beasts, he only got 2 cores. He wondered what effect absorbing them would have. Suddenly, he noticed a baby demon wolf crying over its deceased parents. Approaching it, he told the cub it would have to fight alone from now on. The cub jumped back in fear. The system then notified Ray that he could tame the black demon wolf cub. He decided to try, unsure of what use it would have. The cub was successfully tamed and entered directly into his body. The system informed him he had unlocked a new skill, but he didn't have time to research it. He needed to finish his task quickly, knowing that his goal was nearby. Inside a cave, he found 2 bodies. Smiling grimly, he entered the cave, which was filled with bones, and located the skeletons of Kyle and Bob. Unfazed, he tore their shirts and filled his buckets with their blood before calmly leaving them behind. Later, his mother commented on his dirty clothes. Ray explained he needed to continue training tomorrow but wanted to rest for now. She didn't know what to do with him anymore. She mentioned that his father should return in 2 days, and he could train with him then. This excited Ray, who couldn't wait to show his father the results of his training. his mother angrily exclaimed. "Cover yourself properly with that blanket." Due to his operation stemming from human blood relatives, he quickly complied. That night Ray awakened. He enters the barn where he had hidden his weapons of mass destruction. At Bob and Kyle's house, their mother hears a sound and goes downstairs, wondering who could be knocking at the door so late at night. Tears form in her eyes as she ponders whether it could be Bob and Kyle. She bursts open the door, questioning if it is them. However, no one is there, except for a shirt that belongs to one of her sons. She falls to her knees, looking at it carefully. She questions if it was Kyle's. She sees footsteps and follows them in great haste, leaving the house and entering the forest. As she crosses the bridge, she contemplates that she shouldn't go further, but notices Bob's clothes on a branch. She begins running toward his clothes and screams, "Stop running about and come home!" That's when Ray reveals himself, holding a bucket. Blood falls over her, covering her face and body. She screams and questions who is doing this to her. That's when Ray jumps down, and she declares that she knew it. He really is a monster, embodying the star of disaster. She orders him to return her children to her and lunges at him. However, when she notices the eyes staring back at her from the bush, she becomes terrified. She shouts, "No!" as she realizes what is happening. But it's too late. She screams in pain, while Ray only stares at her, believing she deserved what she got. Later, rumors spread in the village about the curse, and people become afraid to even speak badly about the Italian family in the future. Suddenly, Ray passes by, and a shiver goes down their spines. They all put on a facade, smiling and complimenting him for training so hard. Ray is aware that a new rumor may be spreading, but he likes this one very much. Moments later, he arrives home and sees his mother seated outside. He bursts out smiling happily, thinking his father has finally returned. However, to his shock, he sees his mother is worried and sitting on the bed. She informs him that his father is ill and tells him he has to be strong because his father will get better. Ray uses his dragon eye and notices his father's condition. He has never seen such a state before, even back when he was still the Red Dragon. Suddenly, Ray's father begins to mumble that the shadow will kill everyone. He has contracted the shadow plague. He was attacked by a shadow beast at the border while protecting the villagers. Even in Ray's previous life, he has never seen shadow beasts before. He wonders when they could have emerged and what has happened to this world after his death. As Ray begins leaving, he apologizes for not being able to protect him. This system indicates a spell that could be of use. It is one of the higher magic spells he used to wield, but it is black magic and involves curses. However, he doesn't know how to unlock it. If he has to rely on killing demon beasts to obtain rewards, he will definitely have to kill more demon beasts if he wants to unlock it. However, he is still too weak. Ray questions if he will get stronger after entering Everon Academy. His mother kneels down and assures him that he will. She tells him that his father once studied there, and that Ray will become just as strong as he is. Ray declares that he will definitely qualify for Everon Academy and find a way to cure his father. Tears stream down her face as she declares that she believes in him. Later, a prophecy is revealed. The world will soon undergo great changes. The question remains, what changes will this red-haired boy bring to the world? Will he bring redemption, or will he bring disaster? There is no way to know. If Ray is destined for redemption, they shall guide him. If he brings disaster, they will destroy him. The next day, a festival starts. People arrive early to get the best positions. Excited whispers fill the air as the guest of honor arrives. A group of knights enters, led by 3 commanders in the front. The blonde-haired knight is Sir Delbert, who has a very good reputation. On this annual night examination day, it's the only chance for the people to see the knights in action. Many girls are excited to see them again. The leader of the knights, Sir Bernardo, is an instructor at Everon Academy. Standing beside him is Sir Gilbert. The three of them will jointly conduct the entrance exam for children who have reached the age of 5. Any child interested in joining the academy must step forward and prove their combat ability. A wooden puppet is set in place. Sir Bernardo orders the participants to enter the stage in order. The first test officially begins. A fat, arrogant boy steps forward. He believes that since it's just a wooden puppet, his strength will be enough to defeat it. The puppet takes a defensive stance as he takes an attack stance. His parents, Jeremiah and his wife, watch confidently, believing their son is the best. However, their son is quickly defeated in a single attack, lasting only 1 second against the puppet. His parents are stunned and fall silent immediately as he fails the exam. Even though it's a wooden puppet, its defensive and attack speed is as fast as an adult's. The blonde-haired knight, Sir Delbert, comments that this is a waste of time. However, they must perform their duties as requested by the elders. Ray listens from afar, his enhanced senses sharper since obtaining a monster core. Sir Delbert believes that knights should only come from noble bloodlines. He doesn't understand why these filthy civilians are worth their time. Many children step forward yet fail. However, the tide soon turns as Ray steps forward and passes the exam with ease. He gives a thumbs up to the crowd, causing all the boys to glance at him. The knights take notice, especially Sir Delbert, who comments on Ray's red hair. The villagers whisper among themselves that Ray is the cursed kid, and his hair is frightening because it looks like blood. He stepped forward, ignoring their whispers. Bernardo ordered the next participant to prepare, whispering something to Delbert. Delbert approached the puppet, commenting that he didn't believe in prophecies. If that red hair is as prophesied, he should be able to pass, Delbert sneered. He activated the dummy at level 3, a sinister smile on his face. Suddenly, the dummy charged at Ray. The other knights were shocked, yelling at Ray to watch out. However, Ray stood his ground. The dummy jumped into the air, preparing a lethal blow that could knock him out. Seeing the danger, the leader of the knights prepared to unsheath his sword to save the boy. But what happened next left everyone in shock. Even the villagers were speechless. Ray had beheaded the puppet with ease. Winfred ordered Bernardo to announce the results. Bernardo declared that Ray had passed the exam. His mother and Gary were very proud of him. Later, Ray informed his very ill father that he would be leaving since he had passed the exam. He promised to find a way to cure him. Though he knew his father couldn't hear him, his resolve remained strong. His mother placed an amulet around his neck, their family heirloom, hoping it would bring him luck. As he prepared to leave, his mother told him to take care of himself. Ray reassured her, saying, "Don't worry about me, I'm a man now." He walked away, leaving his mother behind, wiping tears from her face. Ray approached Winfred and the others, who instructed him to get into one of the carriages. When Ray entered the carriage, he was surprised to see Gary. For some reason, he began blushing. The two looked away, avoiding each other's gaze. Gary broke the silence and apologized to Ray, admitting that when Ray defeated him, he had said some unforgivable things. He declared himself an idiot for his actions. Ray shrugged it off, telling him to forget it. "You're just a 5-year-old kid," Ray said with a smile. "You also saved me before, so we'll call it even." Gary noticed how Ray spoke, as if he weren't a child himself, but quickly changed the subject. He asked about Amy, wondering why she didn't come to send Ray off. Ray explained that Amy had gone to Roland Academy, a place for talented individuals with magic. Suddenly, a knight ordered the carriage to stop. Heavy smoke covered the area, obscuring vision. Winfred demanded to know what was happening. From the shadows, a woman staggered toward them, begging for help. She introduced herself as Anne Wardick, an adventurer from the Note 3 scale. Bernardo questioned what had happened, and informed them that her team had been attacked by another shadow beast. Bernardo was shocked. "Why would something like that appear here?" he muttered. They hadn't encountered any beasts on their journey. Delbert smugly commented that the beasts were probably too afraid of their aura to come near. Winfred informed Anne that they were heading to Rainy Town, and offered her a ride if she was traveling in the same direction. She accepted, stating that they could drop her off there. Gary, who had originally thought they were heading directly to the Knight Academy, began to understand. It would be foolish to send children straight to the front lines. Rainy Town was a training fortress where children spent 10 years learning basic combat skills before moving to the Everon Knight Academy. While 10 years was a short time for a dragon, humans didn't live long lives. Ray silently wondered if his father could survive that long. Ray remembered his father being attacked by one of the beasts, a memory that made the knights pale. Gary couldn't imagine what would happen if they encountered such a beast on their journey. Suddenly, Winfred ordered the knights to take combat positions. A giant bear and its minions appeared, emitting purple smoke. This creature was the fallen king bear, infected by another shadow beast. The bear, enraged, charged at them with deadly intent. The knights stood their ground, though nervous. One bear sneaked up behind Bernardo, attacking him from the rear. It was too late for him to dodge. In an instant, Ray appeared and cut the bear down. Bernardo praised him, urging everyone to stay vigilant. Oddly, the giant bear didn't move. It only stared at them from afar while they cut down its minions. Gary faced off against one of the bears but was caught off guard when another appeared, slashing him from behind and injuring his arm. Ray quickly intervened, slashing the bear's back and forcing it to retreat. Ray warned Gary that the fallen king bear's power was much stronger than that of a demon wolf. The demon bear screeched, releasing a massive aura that pushed everyone back. Its power was terrifying. The bear pointed at them with its red, beady eyes, purple aura emanating from it, and declared, "You will never defeat the darkness. Darkness will consume this continent." The knights were unnerved by the creature's words. Suddenly, the bear jumped away, leaving a crater in its wake. They were lucky it chose not to fight, as they wouldn't have escaped unscathed. Winfred commended them, remarking that they performed well and might become qualified knights in the future. Winfred also reflected on Ray's abilities, noting that he performed beyond his age. Meanwhile, Gilbert stared at Ray with hatred in his eyes. Finally, they arrived at Rainy Town, greeted by an unusual number of guards. Winfred questioned the heightened security. The guards explained that the Kingdom of the Lord had issued an Amber Alert, placing all towns under martial law. Realizing the gravity of the situation, Winfred frowned. "This is more serious than I thought," he muttered. The continent was in jeopardy, but could Ray be the guiding light to bring redemption to the people? 10 years later, Rainy Town had become a hub of activity. In class, Gary explained the concept of ki, describing it as the cultivation of internal strength that enhances senses and breaks human limits. The teacher praised him and asked where Ray was. Gary covered for him, saying Ray had gone to the bathroom. Meanwhile, Ray trained in the forest with his demon beast, Nova. He defeated a novice rogue beast and absorbed its core, ending his training for the day. He knew he'd be scolded for returning late, but he didn't care. Unexpectedly, Winfred appeared. Ray was surprised to see him after so long. Winfred informed Ray that he had visited his house and that his father's condition hadn't worsened, thanks to his mother's care. She had asked Winfred to convey this to Ray so he wouldn't worry. With a soft expression, Ray thanked him. Over the past 10 years, Ray had trained relentlessly, yet he hadn't awakened any new skills. Even so, his determination remained unwavering as he prepared for the challenges ahead. Wilfred places his arm around Ray and tells him they will go to the town together. He encourages Ray to cheer up since tomorrow will be the day he heads to Averin Knight Academy. As they enter Rainy Town, a man berates a guard for letting Ray escape again. The guard explains that the Amber Alert was removed, so they had no reason to stop him. The man insists, for what seems like the 100th time, that Ray is special and that every movement of his must be monitored. Wilfred approaches and announces his arrival, cutting the tension. Upon seeing him, Aaron smacks Ray on the head, scolding him for sneaking out so often this month. Wilfred pulls Aaron back, urging both of them to calm down. Soon after, all the students are gathered at the plaza. Gary teases Ray, asking if he was caught sneaking out again. Ray admits he was just unlucky. Meanwhile, a beautiful girl, Natalia, glances at Ray nervously. The attendant, Nancy, declares that from tomorrow onward, the group will journey to Averin Knight Academy. The trip will take about 7 days. She warns the students that if they want to avoid accidents, they must follow orders during the journey. She explains that they will be taking the swamp route, and that anyone aspiring to be a knight must first pass several tests. She hints at some unique individuals among them, whose strengths she looks forward to seeing. The next day, everyone is loaded into carriages. Some students wonder why they aren't using a teleportation device, pointing out that it would save a lot of time. Others argue that Roland Academy has teleportation devices, so why doesn't Averin? Natalia steps in to explain that Averin Knight Academy is situated on the border. Not only must they resist foreign invasions, but they also face constant threats from nether shadow beasts. If a teleportation device were set up there, and the Academy were defeated, enemies could instantly teleport to any part of their country. Later that day, near the ruins of a castle, the students are told to prepare for camping. As they set up, Natalia keeps glancing at Ray. Gary jokes that Natalia seems interested in him, but Ray dismisses it, suggesting there's nothing special about him. Gary insists Ray should look for himself. When Ray catches Natalia's gaze, she quickly returns to her work, surprising everyone. Rick remarks that it could be because of Ray's red hair, though he points out that Ray is no longer unique. There's now the duo Huang, the strong man Ian, and an energetic guy named Kyle. Ray agrees it doesn't matter, cutting Gary off before he can continue. At the back of the camp, 2 boys sneak out to explore the area. They find a basic lake but are overwhelmed by its stench. A knight spots them and explains that it's a swamp. He warns them about sharp insects and advises them to quickly set up their tents and rest. Late that night, Ray sneaks out again. Taking advantage of dinner, he had planned his escape route. However, Natalia catches him, questioning where he's going so late. Ray replies that he's hunting beasts. Shocked, she calls him crazy, pointing out that this area isn't near Rainy Town. She warns that he could encounter intermediate-rank beasts, which even knights struggle to handle. Ray brushes her concern aside, claiming he can handle such beasts. Natalia grabs his hand, staring at him with worry before letting him go. The next morning, Gary wakes up to the sound of knights calling them to rise. To his shock, he sees Ray lying awake, staring at the ceiling with wide-open eyes. Gary nervously asks if Ray slept at all. Ray, with red eyes, insists he slept fine, but Gary knows he's lying. Gary hurries him up, not wanting to be punished in front of everyone. On the journey to Averin Knight Academy, the group continues in their carriages. Gary notices how quiet it is outside. Suddenly, a giant bug bursts into their carriage, startling everyone. Gary swiftly slashes the bug, while the other students panic. It's a sharp bug. Taking charge, Gary orders the group into defensive positions. The sharp bug tries to attack a girl with pink hair, but Gary intervenes, slicing it in half. The girl stares at the blood-soaked bug, trembling. Gary declares that sharp bugs appear in groups, warning that more will come. He orders the group to form defensive formations, standing back to back to eliminate dead corners. They decide to move to a more spacious area to deal with the threat. Meanwhile, Ray activates his Dragon Eye mode and observes the situation. To him, the bugs are merely novice rank, not worth worrying about. He notices the knights observing them from a distance and decides to re-enter the carriage, muttering that the students can handle it. As he lies down, he announces his intention to sleep. The knights comment that Ray might only earn a red belt for his disinterest, while Gary impresses everyone by slashing through the bugs efficiently, conserving his energy. Natalia also joins the fight, demonstrating extraordinary skill and precision. Her attacks are clean and calculated, barely dirtying her clothes. Suddenly, a massive sharp bug appears, throwing a student to the ground. Ian intervenes, tackling the bug and shattering it into pieces. He declares that no one will harm his companions. The twins join the fight, assisting in the extermination, while Kyle laughs recklessly, adding his own flair. The knights, observing from a distance, are impressed by the red-haired students. Ian inquires about his teammates' condition, ensuring everyone is safe. The group thanks him, noting that Ian not only has great strength but also cares for his team. Gary confronts Ray, questioning why he didn't join the fight. Ray shrugs, claiming he was too sleepy and confident that the knights would step in if anything went wrong. Gary, frustrated, shakes his head. Meanwhile, Winfred ponders the prophecy and wonders who the chosen one might be. He also speculates that Ray could earn a white belt if he puts in effort. The students learn about the ranking system. Red belts are for those who perform poorly, white belts signify exceptional skill, and green and black belts indicate specific types of advanced abilities. Those with white belts receive special guidance, personal tutors, and additional resources, while red belts are often neglected. Ray, however, decides that a red belt would suit him. It would allow him more freedom to hunt beasts and possibly acquire higher-rank crystals and abilities. With this goal in mind, he resolves to aim for a red belt.